Mid-afternoon light lay flat across O'Hare's concrete when the DC-10 began its run. American Airlines Flight 191 rolled past the terminal windows, 3 engines pushing, silver skin shivering with speed. Inside the cabin to Los Angeles, a baby fussed and a man folded his newspaper. Out on runway 32R, the jet's nose lifted, tires screamed, and the aircraft broke from the earth. Then a sound like metal tearing a page, something too big to be real, and people along the fence line saw an engine rise above the wing like a thrown stone. It was May 25, 1979. 2 minutes before, the crew had briefed a routine departure. Captain Walter Lux, First Officer James Dillard, and Flight Engineer Alfred Udovich held to procedure. Power set, instruments cross-checked, decision speeds called out. At rotation, the left engine and its pylon assembly tore away from the wing, flipping up and over before smashing onto the runway. In the same breath, the separation ripped hydraulic lines and a bite of the wing's leading edge. The left wing's outboard slats, no longer locked by pressure, slid back as air forces grabbed them. One wing now carried lift, the other began to give it away. In the cockpit, the instruments did not shout what had happened. The engine's departure took with it electrical buses and the cockpit voice recorder's power. The flight director continued to cue a standard climb. The crew flew the textbook profile for an engine failure, but the airplane was no longer an ordinary DC-10 with one dead engine. It was a wounded machine whose left wing was shrinking in the wind. With slats retracted on the left and extended on the right, the jet rolled and yawed into a fight the pilots could not see clearly and did not have seconds to diagnose. Witnesses said the plane lifted briefly, wings wobbling, then banked harder and harder until it was nearly sideways. Beyond the runway end sat a field and a trailer park. The DC-10 cleared the perimeter fence and hung there, nose up, left wing dropping. For a heartbeat, it seemed to level. Then the left wingtip struck the ground. The aircraft cartwheeled, disintegrated, and fire rolled across the grass. A black column rose above the suburbs, and the airport fell silent except for sirens. 2 people on the ground died where the fire reached them. All 271 aboard were gone in an instant. It was, and remains, the deadliest single-plane aviation accident in U.S. history. What broke that morning began weeks earlier in a maintenance bay. American Airlines, like other DC-10 operators, had adopted a time-saving method to remove an engine and its pylon as a unit using a forklift rather than separating them per the manufacturer's procedure. The job could be done faster, but it left almost no margin for misalignment. At Tulsa, while lowering or reinstalling the assembly on N110AA, the aircraft flying Flight 191, the forklift's slightest miscue placed stress on the pylon's rear attach fitting. Metal that had been machined to hold an engine now held a bruise. Cracks grew under vibration and heat until, on takeoff, the pylon failed and the engine tore free, taking systems with it and starting the chain that ended at the field off Toohey Avenue. The investigation mapped the last seconds like a ruler laid on smoke. Diagrams showed the engine vaulting over the wing and falling onto the runway. Hydraulic fluid streamed away, slats on the left retracted. The airplane kept climbing on the right wing and began to roll. Stall warnings arrived too late to mean anything. The cockpit voice recorder captured almost nothing. Power died with the engine, so the board relied on radar traces, debris paths, and tests. A simulator proved the cruel geometry. A DC-10 with asymmetric slats will roll hard toward the retracted side, and at low altitude, it leaves no room to recover. Families came to O'Hare to learn what no one can teach. Airline agents led them to rooms where the air smelled like coffee and carpet. Names were read. Priests and chaplains moved from chair to chair. Outside, firefighters worked a field that had become a grid. By evening, people stood behind police tape and watched the smoke. When the National Transportation Safety Board finally named the cause, it did not stop at the moment the engine let go. It walked back through the hangar doors. The board cited improper maintenance practices that damaged the pylon and a culture that measured efficiency in hours saved. It also noted a design vulnerability. Critical systems routed through the pylon made the airplane far less tolerant to that single failure. The fix would be both human and mechanical. Procedures changed, inspections deepened, and the language around savings learned new caution. The effect spread beyond one airline and one airplane. 2 weeks after the crash, the Federal Aviation Administration suspended the DC-10's type certificate in the United States, grounding the fleet while design and maintenance issues were examined. Foreign carriers were barred from U.S. airspace. Passengers saw headlines and wondered if wide-body jets were safe at all. By mid-July, with compliance and checks in place, the FAA lifted the grounding. The DC-10 would fly again, but it would never quite lose the shadow of that day over Chicago. Radar showed roughly 31 seconds of flight. Controllers called the jet and got no answer. With power severed, the cockpit recorder caught a heavy thump and the first officer's "damn," then silence. Witnesses saw the jet roll left past 90 degrees, well over 100, before the wingtip struck. The wreckage began about 4,600 feet beyond the runway. N110AA was a DC-10-10. Hydraulic pressure holds its leading edge slats out. When pressure vanished on the left, airflow shoved those slats back and the wing stalled at a higher speed. Control surfaces could not overcome the loss of lift at that height. The crew flew the engine-out profile they had trained for. The airplane, crippled in ways no checklist foresaw, could not fly. Afterward, the shortcut forklift method of engine pylon removal was halted and then banned. Airlines reverted to the slower manufacturer procedure and tightened inspections. Regulators reviewed routing so one break wouldn't kill multiple systems. 2 weeks later, the FAA grounded DC-10s. By mid-July, with fixes in place, the ban was lifted. Crash sites change. Grass grows back, fences are moved, roads restriped. In Des Plaines, there is now a memorial wall and garden near Lake Park, and a quiet patch near Toohey Avenue, where people still leave flowers and photographs. On anniversaries, families gather and read the names. Each name represents a seat that never arrived in Los Angeles, a promise rerouted by a single failed fitting. Listen to the chain one last time. A forklift drifts a fraction of an inch. A bolt bears weight it was not meant to bear. Metal deforms where no one can see it. An engine departs, severing lines that hold a wing's shape. The aircraft tries to climb and cannot. The system, maintenance shortcuts, pressures, design tolerances, oversight, fails in sequence, clean as dominoes. Walk the edge of the runway in your mind. Feel the vibration rise through your shoes as a jet reaches takeoff speed. Watch the nose lift and the ground fall away. Hold that breath the way everyone did on May 25, 1979, when a wide body seemed to hang against the sky and then rolled, slow at first, then faster, until smoke wrote the ending none of them chose. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.